Hello, everybody. I'm Miles Kroeker. I'm here today to talk about the core. So, pretty vague concept, and it's kind of a funny one for me, actually, because I find that word gets dropped a lot, and there's just like this expectation for people to know what it is that you're talking about. However, the core is a pretty complex and deep subject. So to start with, what does it really mean when we speak to the core of something? And I find a good way to envision that is just thinking about the core of the earth. So the central working aspect of something is the core. So before we even get into the physicality of the core, something that's very useful to determine and bring forward to your own personal practice is, what are your core values? What are your core beliefs? What are the things that drive your purpose and your primary reason for doing? So having a good understanding of these sorts of things shape your foundation towards anything that you do in this life. This can be a practice that you can start in a way of just coming up with 1 to 3 things that seem most important to you, basically your highest values or your core values, and getting a better understanding of what those are so that you can keep those as a continual intention in your practice, whether you're doing a yoga practice, just your day-to-day activities, and something that you bring into your everyday life. Now, to bring it a little bit deeper into the tissues of the body, what and where is our core? Often I find we talk about something like the abdominals that guide our core, and we get a lot of people that are working these V-sit positions or sit-ups and working the core in this way, or planks where you're stabilizing the core. But what is it that we're stabilizing? Where is the core in the body? And to me personally, I believe this comes from where we're trying to control our center. And the center of gravity for most people lies right in the center of the pelvis. So in a moment, I'm going to show you with Mr. Bones here where that lies, and a little bit more of an up-close shot of how we would control our core based off of our center of gravity and where our body moves around that central point. Okay, so now when we come to speaking to the anatomy of our core and more on a physical level, we can see here the pelvis. This is going to be slightly different orientations for different people. The width of the pelvis, the depth of the pelvis, where exactly the angle of the femoral heads and things are. So there's always variation in this. But for the most part, we have very similar pelvic bodies. So the pelvic floor is basically all of the tissue that sits right between our sitting bones and our sacrum and tailbones here. So by having a good connection to the pelvic floor and being able to squeeze and connect and activate and stimulate that area, it gives us a good awareness of this triangulated force of controlling our 2 separate pelvic bones and our sacrum, which then leads to our spinal stability. So if our center of gravity is sitting right in the center of the pelvis, having that awareness to our pelvic floor then helps generate a sense of our core. Now, above and below our pelvis, we have the muscles that come up to our ribs and control our lower spine, and then the muscles that come down to our legs. So to be in control of the center of gravity, having appropriate hip control in and around the central point of our hips, or the core of the hips, and having a connection to the abdominals and back muscles are going to have a really good sense of being able to then control our center of gravity. 2 things that I would like to talk about here in that is an understanding of controlling one body towards the other from either point A to point B or point B to point A. So if we're standing on our feet, when we're controlling and tightening the muscles of our pelvis that connect all along the sit bones and from our sacrum out to the femur, we can control our pelvis by connecting these muscles down towards the leg. So as if the pelvis is moving towards the leg or controlling towards the leg. because the leg is grounded to the floor. Vice versa, if the pelvis is stable, we can then control the legs into it. So thinking both of an outward flow towards the leg and an inward flow of the leg towards the pelvis when we're moving through and controlling our leg and hip muscles is a useful directional energy pattern for the tissue. The same thing goes for the core muscles of our upper body. So anything that attaches from the pelvis up to the ribs, up to the lower spine, the pelvis can move towards the spine and the ribs, or the ribs and the spine can move towards the pelvis. So thinking in directional energies of either pulling up towards the upper body or pulling the upper body down towards the lower body helps us get a sense of stabilizing the core or moving aspects of our center of gravity and our core. Take a time to look at anatomical pictures, both the musculature, the bones, and you'll start to get a deeper sense of how to feel that in the body and have a clearer connection of how to control your center and your core. The core can also be just focused on as anything that's in the deep central point of other parts of our body. So the core of our shoulder, the core of our spinal column, and the deep muscles there. So the more deep we can get into the body and the more we can work with those smaller, subtler muscles helps us develop a core balance and understanding throughout the body. Thanks for listening today, and I hope to see you again.